Hey everybody, it's Josh from WA Production, and today we're going to go a little retro on you with our friends at United Plugins and JMG Sound. We've got Retronaut, and this new plugin is really incredible. If you're interested in creating either lo-fi music or just giving a little bit of lo-fi flair or warmth or analog style to your mixes, or to specific elements in your tracks, then this is the plugin for you. It's a really awesome effect plugin with tons of different features in terms of different effects that you can create to make your sound a little bit more warm or a little bit more destroyed or crushed, or just give it that lo-fi feel of that just imperfect sound. So I definitely would love to share with you exactly how it works, what the different features are, and firstly, let's listen to how it sounds on different sounds in our tracks. All right, so as you can hear in those presets, there's a lot going on, and you can create some very differing sounds with the different settings within Retronaut. So now I'll just jump into exactly what those settings are, what those options are, and how you can use them in your tracks. So I'll start with the global settings up here. So we've got our preset manager with a lot of really great factory presets. You can see that they kind of have descriptors for the style that they are in, lo-fi cassette, seasick, treble enhancer. We've got some specific presets as well for the different effects included. So these are more tailored towards chorus effects, getting that kind of wobbly, wide sound there. Redux effects, which can kind of crush the sound and make it sound lo-fi, lower quality, that sort of thing. Verb, more of a reverb effect. Vibe here stands for vibrato. So this effect will be kind of wobbly in its pitch. And then extra, these are maybe a bit more extreme and specific into certain sound design effects, essentially. You can also hit previous and next right here, which is convenient as well to go through the different presets. So I'm going to go back to our initial preset. Over here, you can A/B test different settings. So if we want to go over to B and change all of these around, adjust things, we can go back to A and see how it sounded before we made those changes. Or we can copy everything from A to B, and now they are the same again. So that's pretty helpful when you're trying out a couple different effects or variations of effects to see which one sounds better to you. You can also use the undo and redo button. There's also the smart randomization feature, which randomizes all your settings here using a smart algorithm so that it's not completely random, but it can give you some quick inspiration and you can see how it sounds. There's also this limiter here, which prevents you from doing some unwanted distortion, depending on what the settings you have here are. So as I share with you the degrade section settings, I'm going to actually load a sound so we can hear what it does. So first we've got flutter, which adds random fluctuations to the modulation shape, which simulates tape flutter. So we do have to have some modulation going on. So we've got the vibrato on here, and then let's see how it sounds when we add it in. So yeah, basically the vibrato sounds pretty smooth without it, and then when we add it in, there's just a little bit of random movement there that makes it sound a bit more chaotic. So that's pretty cool. Moving on to dust, this adds noise to the modulation shape, and it sounds like if you had dust on your vinyl record, which is a problem that many DJs have faced if you ever played on vinyl or on control records and such. But if you've only played on controllers and CDJs, you might not have had that the pleasure of having that problem. So that's nice to give it a little character as well in small doses. Fail will add random glitches of pitch and level drops to simulate old failing gear. So yeah, again, a lot of these sound really good with small bits. If it goes a little over the top, that really just doesn't sound appealing. But if we got it like right there, little glitches and stuff sounds pretty cool. Jumping to warp, this adds a pitch drift and a little tremolo at half rate to all the voices globally. So yeah, it's pretty pronounced at 100, but something you might want to use a little bit of. Going down to dirt, this controls the amount of tape style saturation. Cool. And then going to feed, this is standing for feedback, controls the amount of cross feedback. So it takes the outputs of the voices and feeds them into each other. So that one might sound particularly cool if we push up the voices. And then we can make everything mono here, which is pretty common also in some lo-fi sounds because it simulates old gear, which might only have a single speaker, like a radio. So let's talk about this mod section. So this part contains controls for modulation depths. So the vibe knob controls vibrato, which is the kind of modulation of your pitch, which gives it that wobbly sort of sound common in lo-fi music. The high pass modulator controls the modulation depth of the high pass filter that is on the sound, and then the same for the low pass filter over here. So these are just kind of some settings you can play around with to see what sounds good for your particular sound. And over here in the mix section, you can add in 1 to 4 voices, which fades from vibrato into chorus. And you've also got these dry wet knobs as well. So you can control these individually. So you can decide how much dry signal to mix in with your wet signal. For example, you can have all your dry signal with just a little bit of wet signal, or you can make it completely wet with no dry signal or anything in between. One other handy feature as well is this link button, which will link the dry and wet knobs to turn this into a traditional dry wet mix knob. So as you can see, if we're at 70% dry, it's going to be at 30% wet. It's always going to be the opposite. So 50-50, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty handy as well if you'd like to simplify it and just have it be a traditional dry wet knob. Heading down into the LFO section, the LFO is what will control your modulation. So here you've got your rate of how fast the LFO will move from 0.1 hertz to 10 hertz. You've got your high pass scale, which offsets the high pass modulation rate from the main modulation rate. This can create some interesting sounds. So something you just kind of want to play around with and see where fits well for your sound. The same with the low pass scale as well. The minimum position is half the rate of your main LFO, and the maximum position is double the rate of your main LFO. So you can play around with those so that it's not perfectly in sync. However, at center, it'll be playing at the same rate of your LFO. And then you can decide between the shapes of your LFO. You've got the option for a sine wave or a triangle wave. And then jumping over to the last of these four middle sections is the VCF section, which stands for the voltage controlled filter. This features virtual analog high pass and low pass resonant filters that shape the tone of the sound. So you can control the resonance here in the middle, which will really alter your sound by adding a big resonant peak if you push it really hard. Got the frequency of your high pass filter between 20 and 2000 hertz. And then you've got the frequency of your low pass filter, which is from 200 to 20,000 hertz. The pole options here just select the slope of your high pass and your low pass respectively. So 2 will be a more gradual slope and 4 will be a more steep slope. Now heading over to the diverge section, we'll start with spread, which offsets the LFO phase in the left and right channels. Where this might be helpful is to just get it sounding a bit wider, a little more random. So let's kind of hear how it sounds. Basically, it's just adjusting the modulation in the left and the right, and where the phase that they're in. So they're modulating with different start times, essentially. So V2 scale stands for voice 2 scale, and that offsets the voice 2 modulation rate from the main modulation rate, going from half the rate to twice the rate, similar to the rates of these high pass and low pass scales over here. Same with V3 and V4. So if we have all four voices going, we can modulate them all at differing rates, which can create an interesting effect. All right, and then the lag option creates a time delay for each voice. So this can create what's called a seasick vibrato effect or some other interesting effects as well. And then the phase option offsets the LFO phase for each voice. By default, it's at maximum, so that the chorus will sound full, but you can tighten up the chorus by reducing this as well. All right, and then as you're playing along, if you have some of these settings adjusted, they'll continue to get out of phase. And so if you want to kind of restart them, you can hit this resync button and it will bring them back to the starting point in phase. All right, and then one handy, somewhat hidden feature is that you can right-click anywhere in the plugin, and it will give you a new menu of options. So you can turn on oversampling, you can adjust the GUI size, you can do a few other things here as well. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist with Retronaut. I think it's a really awesome plugin, especially with how popular lo-fi sounds and lo-fi genres are becoming these days. So I urge you to definitely go check it out. It's now on our WA Production store. It's a lot of fun to play around with. Even if you're not making lo-fi music, there's always room for some gritty, unique sounding elements in your mix. So this could really fill that empty space in your track, give it some warmth and some analog feel. And really, they give you so many awesome presets, so you don't have to do a bunch of tweaking and messing around. You can just scroll through presets and see what sounds good and then tweak from there if you'd like. So definitely worth checking out. Hope you guys like this new plugin that we've added to our store. And this has been Josh from WA Production, and I'll catch you guys next time.